and I'll just leave it at that. Hey, our next guest hanging out in the virtual green room is host of the Sports Rage 97.3, Mike Gill. What the deal? How we doing today in studio?
Sorry, man. I was pulled into a late meeting there, but I'm ready to go. You're talking draft, man. You're giving me draft stuff already.
That's what I do, Mike. It's my 21st year covering the NFL draft, and so we've got over 600 scouting reports over at NFLDraftBible.com right now. So you can get educated, get regulated, and I got a little bit of a bone to pick with you here before we get started because, yeah, I mean, listen, I was trying to give you the benefit of the doubt here because, I was always told, like, you got to be skeptical of those guys with two first names, right? Mike Gill Hodges, borderline, right? I was willing to give you the benefit of the doubt, but man, this whole butter on the counter deal,
brother, it's funny because I had an overwhelming response about this.
Make this make sense to me, please. I mean, Paisan.
I had an overwhelming response to this on yesterday's show, and this morning, the funny part is I made an English muffin. Went to go get the butter on the counter, and it was gone. So I had to go into the fridge and go get a stick of butter that was hard as a rock and unspreadable. Listen, I grew up in a butter in the fridge home. My girlfriend.
Wait a second. I've never known anything else in life. What do you mean?
I didn't either. Now, my girlfriend is from upstate Western New York, up by past Syracuse.
Yeah, that's questionable too.
Right. When we moved in together, she put the butter on the counter, and I was like, what is this? I didn't question it. I just was like, this is odd. But I fell in love with it. The butter is spreadable, man. You get the knife right through it, like a hot knife through butter. You don't have to put the butter in the microwave. It doesn't melt all over the place. It's ready. It's spreadable. It's ready to go.
No. Like, and just for clarification to the listening audience, like, Mike keeps the butter on the counter full time.
Yeah, full time. It's not like just sitting on the counter. It's in it's in something like when people have a nice dinner for Thanksgiving, they put the butter in this thing and then they present it. We just keep it in that on the counter all the time.
No. Like, right. I get it. Like, I toast a piece of bread. I take the butter out and I put it on the counter so that it softens.
Nah. Do me a favor. This weekend, take your butter out. When I'm back next time, you tell me, man, this was a liberating experience.
No, I'm pretty sure, Mike. I'm pretty sure I've left the butter out overnight. Okay. And when I woke up the next morning, it had like this film on it. Like, do you know, like when you go to the supermarket, I've never seen the butter in the dry food aisle. It's always in the refrigerator aisle. I've never seen butter sitting on the shelf.
And they're not going to leave it sitting out, but I did the research. Butter can sit out of the refrigerator. Butter can sit out of the refrigerator for 1 to 3 months before it starts to go bad.
Crazy, bro.
Yeah.
So you just got butter chilling on the counter for 3 months at a time. Like, oh, it's all good.
Now, come on, Rick. How fast do you go through butter? I got 4 people in my house. We go through butter pretty damn quickly. Like this morning, when I needed that butter and it was in the refrigerator, I had to put it in the microwave. And then you know what happened? I mic'd it too long. It was leaking all over the place. Nah, just put the butter. Listen, I grew up in an Italian household. We put the butter in the fridge. Bad move. I'm converted.
That's all I've ever known. I don't know. Apparently, there's 20% out there that are sick like you, but
I had a gentleman. I did my show yesterday on location. He came up to me and said, I was listening to you, and we keep our butter on the counter.
I don't know. Hey, we'll agree to disagree on that one. Mike Gill here, 97.3, the Sports Bash. Always enjoy chopping it up and breaking it down, Mike. To me, the Philadelphia Eagles have the most vaunted offense in the National Football League. I think the Giants are in for a big problem this week. How do you see it?
I don't know about that. Okay. I agree with the premise that the game is important for both sides, and the Giants are going to have to give everything. I think the Giants are in a terrible spot. They played Washington last week. They tie, which is essentially a win for them. Now they got to play Philly, and then they got to go on the road and play Washington, while Washington's sitting here watching them. So Washington plays them again. They played them. They can make adjustments. They can watch them again, make more adjustments, and then play them. This is a huge game for the Giants. They know it. So they're going to give you everything they have. This game here for them is almost a play. Well, it is a playoff game, because if they don't win this game, I don't think they're beating Washington next week. They play Minnesota still coming up. They need 2 more wins somewhere, I think, on their schedule, and I don't see them. They have to get this game. So they're going to give you everything they got. That said, they're simply not talented enough. The only way, to me, Philadelphia would lose this game is similar to Washington. And I'm not even talking about them running the ball 40 times in the game. I'm talking about the Eagles just completely melting down and beating themselves, turning the ball over, fumbles, penalties like last week against Tennessee, and keeping the Giants in the game. I just don't think the Giants have enough talent. They can't beat you down the field. Defensively, they're just okay. Their offensive line is all right. It's not great. The one thing they do well is run the ball. The guy who worries me the most is Jones taking off and running. That would be the one guy who worries me the most, because I think the Eagles will bottle up Barkley. I think they'll do a good job there. They're not going to beat you in the pass game. Did Jones take off and get enough yards in the ground to keep them competitive? I just don't see it, man. The path to victory for the Giants are pretty narrow.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think when you look at the talent and you go down the list, mano a mano, and I look at a Tennessee Titans team of a week ago that was much more talented, I feel, than this Giants roster. And we saw how they dismantled Tennessee.
Yeah.
And, in one perspective, it was the most complete game in terms of offense, defense, special teams. But you alluded to it, man, that penalty situation, they had 9 penalties. I think they had 5 penalties in the first 20 minutes. Every single member of that offensive line unit was flagged for a penalty. So, they didn't play their best game. In fact, you could argue they made a lot of mistakes, and they still whooped up on the Tennessee Titans. So my point being is,
the last couple of weeks, they fumbled. They had some turnovers in the Green Bay game. Green Bay didn't beat them. They had penalties in the Tennessee game. Tennessee couldn't beat them. Yep. The Eagles have had kind of a couple of weeks where they have been beatable, and teams have not figured out. Washington got them. But after the Washington games, there was a blueprint that teams said, okay, we can follow. That's the thing. People say, all right, now you're on tape. Now we have a blueprint. The good teams adjust to that. If you say, oh, I see what Washington did, let's try to do what they did. Philadelphia says, we're not letting teams do that to us again. So they've adjusted from the Washington game, still making mistakes, and teams still can't beat them. That's a sign of a really good team. And I don't think Washington, what they did, is something that other teams can keep doing, because most teams are not willing. They are not willing to stick with the run the way Washington. That's what I give Washington a lot of credit that night. They stuck with something that most teams don't. Now, New York's a team that will probably stick with it, but, man, here's the difference. When Washington needed a play in the pass game, McLaurin, Samuels, they have a couple guys. New York just simply does not. And that's what happened to Tennessee last week. When Burks went out, they just simply didn't have a guy in the pass game. And that's where I see this New York team right now.
Yeah, and I think that's where it gets dangerous for the G-men. They just lack the playmakers. Sterling Shepard, Wendell Robinson out for the year. Kenny Galladay, last time I saw him, was on back of a milk carton. When Darius Slayton is your number one weapon and complemented by Richie James and Isaiah Hodgins. And, man, I think it's going to be a Bubba Sparks ugly kind of affair.
Oh, and keep in mind, last week it was A.J. Brown. Remember, James Bradbury was a Giant. They didn't have the money to bring him back. So who's he matching up with this week? Because that guy's going to have a tough day.
Yeah, Isaiah Hodgins, I would imagine, but it could be Richie James.
Dave Sills. Come on, man.
David Sills, the 5th.
The 5th, that's right. Man, he was a stud at West Virginia, but
yes, he was.
It has not translated.
Yeah, I missed the first 4 versions of David Sills.
Yeah.
But you make a good point, though, with the Daniel Jones, because it's been, an off-script season, like a little bit weird, right? Kyler Murray is the only kind of dual threat, quote unquote, quarterback that the Eagles have faced this year. Do you think that, and I saw Kaiser White popped up on the injury report yesterday with an ankle. Do you think they could take TJ Edwards or Kaiser White and spy Daniel Jones on Sunday?
It's interesting because I thought, the one thing that Tannehill did, he broke off and had a couple runs last week. And I feel like the Eagles were kind of okay with saying, hey, you want to get a couple 8-yard, 7-yard, 15, 11-yard runs, go for it. We're not just, they are just not going to let you go over the top, and they would not let you get the yards in the middle of the field. But if you say White has a little bit of an ankle issue, I thought Nakobe Dean, I got to be honest, and Kaiser White, West Virginia, shout out, man, but I thought Dean played awesome last week. I thought there was a play he made, and they showed the replay, and I said, who the hell is 17? Like, he hasn't played all year. I don't think anybody has saw his jersey number once, all season long, name not called one time. I said, who is 17? 2 plays in a row. He jumped off the page. I'm not saying that White should be replaced or anything, but, man, I think if you get Dean on the field somehow, holy moly, he adds another dimension, and this would be a week. Sideline to sideline guy who can kind of watch Jones. I don't know about spy so much, but make a break on him if Jones, takes off. But the Eagles play, they're not like a man-to-man defense. So if Jones takes off, much like last week with Tannehill, he might get some yards, but eventually he's going to have to make a play. And I don't know that plays in him because I don't think here's the thing. Quarterbacks need help. Daniel Jones is an average quarterback. He could be a good quarterback if he had some help. He just doesn't have it.
Yeah, he's a manageable quarterback. You can win some ball games, but I think
he's got skill set. I like much like what the Eagles did with Hurts. They gave him weapons. If this team had some weapons, I'd like to see if Jones could perform. If he had, there's not AJ Brown's all over the place. I get it. But you mentioned Galladay. What the heck happened to him? If we put together a team of the milk carton guys, like Russell Wilson, what happened to you? Kenny Galladay, what happened to you? Like, he was a beast that year in Detroit, and he has completely lost it.
Yeah, well, hey, we can definitely. I know who the GM of the all milk carton team would be. We could hire David Gettleman right now.
How about that news? Jeez.
On the opposite end of the spectrum, I think Howie Roseman again deserves some props here for all the pending free agents on the defense at the end of the season. He does have some developmental players here in the pipeline at all 3 levels of the defense. Jordan Davis up front, Nakobe Dean in the second level. You got Reed Blankenship, who's looking like a young blue chip to build around in this Eagles secondary. As you know, they're not going to be able to bring back all those pending free agents. And, we only got about 10 minutes left to mess around with, Mike. So I want to wrap up some Eagles talk. I want to look at the bigger picture in a second, but I'm curious to see, and you mentioned Bradbury, who played very well 2 years with the Giants. He had 7 interceptions, 35 pass deflections, but the G-men saved $10 million by cutting him before the season. And, I think Bradbury had the quote of the week, though. They said, any emotions about facing the New York Giants this week? He said, you know what? Last time I checked, we're 11-1. I haven't had much time to think about the New York Giants.
What's funny? Bradbury's one of those guys that he's had a tremendous year. You're wondering, though, is this the best year you're ever going to get out of him? Because you talk about free agents, he's another one. And now we have some blue chip guys. I don't want to say blue chip, but we don't know what they are yet. But we like Jordan Davis, young player. Like Dean, what he has shown looks like he can replace somebody because both those linebackers are free agents, by the way. Bradbury's a free agent. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson's a free agent. So Bradbury would be a guy you might be getting the best year you've ever gotten out of him. I mean, I'm almost like a la Patrick Robinson when he was here in the Super Bowl year. Robinson had the best year he ever had. He signed a free agent deal with the Saints and was just not the same player. So the Eagles' decision on Bradbury is going to be interesting because that's one area where we have not seen evidence that they have a replacement.
Correct.
And this is the kind of week where he's saying, but Bradbury's a player that's had a tremendous year. We haven't met the guy yet. He doesn't say a whole bunch of a lot. He's doing his business, but he said, this is business. I know, okay, he has it focused. He's tunnel visioned that this is my year. I didn't get the contract I wanted last year. He took a 1-year deal for less. So he's going to be out there trying to prove to everybody. And a game like this where, he's playing his former team. He doesn't want to show that the emotions get to him. So I think he's going to have a really good day, but he's going to be a real tough decision this offseason.
Yeah, and he is very businesslike, workmanlike. I will say safety and running back, Mike, are two positions I will never overpay for. I can go find a safety, go see Reed Blankenship. I can go find a safety anytime. Finding a lockdown cornerback,
yeah,
a little bit more
there
difficult.
was, I don't know who did the poll. I forget it. I wanted to give him credit, but they said the toughest position to evaluate in the draft is safety because there are so many plays on the field where they're just not doing anything. Where there's a running play and they're not a part of it, or a pass play that goes to the outside and they're not in coverage, that there's so many plays that they're just not a part of. There's so few plays, and those plays are so important that they are a part of. So it's hard to see if you run 65 plays and 50 of them you're not really a big part of. It's hard to evaluate that guy, what that guy can do. So the poll was basically saying safeties is the hardest position to draft, to evaluate, because they are not a part of so many plays. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd call it the most difficult, but it is challenging, absolutely. And we'll talk more about the NFL draft over the course of the next 139 days. But who's keeping tabs, right? Hey, let me ask you this, though. I heard a topic of conversation on the previous show, Birds 365. I'm curious to get your opinion on this because the Giants MetLife Stadium, it's still Giants Stadium to me, over the last several years, not just the Eagles fans, the Giants have let a lot of opposing fans come into MetLife Stadium and kind of take it over.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is the first year I had to go back and look because I said, hey, it hasn't felt like much of a rivalry because the last time both of these teams had a winning record was 2010. And so now here we are with the Giants, a meaningful game. Do you think the Bird Gang will travel well to MetLife Stadium? Do you think it'll be 50-50? How do you see the crowd this Sunday?
I think the Eagles fans will travel. They always do. Giant Stadium's 80-some thousand seats. So even if the Eagles get a good contingent in there, the Giant fans are great fans too. So they're going to be basically filling that joint. But I do think the Eagles fans will travel. It's not going to be like when the Eagles go to Washington or when the Eagles went to L.A. When the Chargers were playing in that soccer stadium and took that place over, or when they went down to Miami. Not going to be to that extreme. Giant fans are great, man. I love this week. Look, I'm Eagles-Giants week. Eagles-Dallas is like a Hallmark a holiday. It's a made-up thing. Eagles-Giants should be the number one, right? The Giant fans, I'll give them this. They at least know what their zip code is, right? They know where they're from. They know who to support. The Dallas fans can't figure out their zip code. They're all over the place. You're 2,500 miles from where your team is. The Giant fans, I give them that respect. They're from there. They have civic pride. Sports is about civic pride, and the Giant fans have it. That's why Eagles-Giants is my favorite week. And guess what? If the Giants beat the Eagles this week, this would be a horrific loss for Philadelphia. Horrific. Philadelphia needs this game if they want that number one seed. They can afford to lose one more game, but it can't be this one.
No, you're right about that. And I do want to get a prediction from you, but quickly, Boston Scott, do the Eagles put a design package, a expanded game plan in the playbook for Boston Scott this week? Are you going out of your way to get him some touches?
Hey, he's been awesome against the Giants. 3 touchdown games. I mean, he's been a giant killer, if you will. I like Boston Scott, man. I think they need to get him more involved just in general. Does he get some dude? Miles Sanders had no touchdowns a couple of years ago. He's got 9 this year. He's been having an unbelievable year. Remember, he's a free agent too. He may have priced himself out of a lot of places. Who wants to pay? You said I'm not putting money in the running back. Miles Sanders is going to be an interesting story this offseason. But yeah, I like Philadelphia in the game, and quite frankly, I think it's going to be a grimy game and one of those games where grimy, that's my man, Andrew DeCecco, who threw that at me. I like that word.
Where'd you find that guy, by the way? I like that kid.
Yeah, Andrew's the man. But I like Philadelphia. I think it's an ugly type of game because the Giants will run it and give you some, drives, but I just don't see them converting. A lot of threes for the Giants. I got 24-9, 24-12, something like that. So
Talking
Not
Mike
the most
Gill.
aesthetically pleasing game on Sunday.
Yeah, I have it even greater than that. I'll save my score prediction for after the break. We're going to get into some NFL pick'em, but we're talking to Mike Gill, 97.3, the Sports Bash. Of course, football at 4. Yesterday was football at 5 with Andrew DeCecco. Great stuff. Any remotes coming up here this week? I know you're at the Ocean Casino.
Every Monday I'm at Ocean. Every Monday I'm at Ocean Casino, and every Thursday I'm at Chickies and Pete's at the Tropicana. And one Thursday, which will actually be this Thursday coming up, at the EHT Chickies and Pete's. So I'm always bouncing around. Yeah, out and about, 2 to 6 weekdays. You can get the app and listen. If you like what you're hearing right now, you can get the app and download it. And I'll be on 2 to 6 today. What's today? Friday. Sal Powell will be on. Adam Kaplan, football at 4 today.
Yeah, you got a lot of love in the chat room here. By the way, Mike Gill nominated once again for Broadcaster of the Year. Can we do something? How does that voting work, Mike? Can we?
I have no idea. I don't know how I got nominated. I don't know who votes, but it's nice to be mentioned.
Well, we need to find out, and we can, take matters into our own hands here.
Right. I don't know that it is listeners or whoever that votes. I think it is people in the industry.
Okay, fair enough. Well, tell them to call me. I deserve a vote. Real quickly here before we get you out, let me pick your brains. You said, hey, it would be a hell of a victory for the Giants. How about the Minnesota Vikings are underdogs going into Detroit this week? What do you make of that?
Minnesota has been a hot topic of conversation on the show, where they should rank. There, to me, I have them about 8 or 9 on my power rankings here. Detroit's on the come right now. This team has been hot. They're way improved. The one thing about Minnesota, I think their defense lacks. That's the problem for me, is the defense. And they got a tough matchup with this Detroit offense. Do I think that they should be an underdog at 10-2? A little bit of a slap, but I don't hate it, man. I don't hate it. I just don't love Minnesota. The quarterback's not playing great. I mean, he has not played. He has been a weird topic of conversation through the years because his numbers have always been great, but his QBR not great this year. He's just played okay. I don't have a problem. If I'm Minnesota, I would feel disrespected and use that because, look, I saw this thing. Did you see this the other day? The what-if standings, if one possession in each game was flipped.
Oh, yeah, the Vikings would probably be below 500, right?
1-11. 1-11, and they would be on an 11-game losing streak. Now, Philadelphia would be 6-6 in one-possession games. If it was one-possession games, what if those one-possession games they lost? Minnesota would be 1-11. So I like Detroit this week. I actually like Detroit.
It's just so weird that a playoff team is an underdog to a 5-win team.
Yeah, but you know what? This is like a whole nother show, man, which is your record does not mean that you're better than somebody else. Like, I'll take the Bengals at 8-4 over a lot of teams. Just because your record's 10-2, I'll take Cincinnati. You can have Minnesota at 10-2 and say, well, they're 10-2. That's great for them, but I'll take Cincinnati. There are variables at why teams are what they are. It's not Bill Parcells anymore. Your record is what you said. It is what you said it is in terms of seeding, but that's not for ceiling. And the Bengals ceiling 8-4, I'll take that over. By the way, Kansas City 9-3. You're not going to take them over Minnesota?
Oh, no, I agree with you. I know we got to go, but one more in the NFC because a lot of people view them as, contenders. Tampa Bay 6-6, traveling into San Francisco 8-4. The Brock Purdy led 49ers. Are you ready to throw dirt on the grave of San Francisco, or are you giving him a fighter's shot here?
I will give him a shot. Brock Purdy, watched him for 4 years at Iowa State. Man, I watch him have some big games. I think he's smart. I think he can read. I think they have a good offense for his style of play. Is he a long-term answer? No. But I think they have a good, smart offense. I thought he looked really impressive. Now, I'm not going to go off and say, based on what I saw in one game, I'm sold on him, but I'm not putting the dirt on their grave yet. Why? Their defense, man. Their defense is outstanding, and I think Shanahan's smart enough to design short, quick stuff, and they have the personnel for short, quick stuff. Some teams, if you're going short and quick, it's because you don't have the opportunity to go down the field. But I can get the ball to Deebo Samuel in space, short space. McCaffrey, get him some more touches. Brandon Ayuk, get him some. Kittle's got to get a part of this thing, man. Can I get George Kittle into the offense, please? Purdy is the right guy to get him involved. So I like San Francisco still. I had him as a Super Bowl team before. Now I have him as possibly a one and done in the playoffs, but a pain in the ass to play. No, they're going to get probably the 3 seed still, and they get matched up with New York or Washington or Seattle, one of those teams.
Yeah, I think, the 49ers, because of their defense, and the Commanders, I'll throw in the equation, come playoff time, if they get in, that's going to be a tough out. Then nobody's going to want to face those two teams. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, I know you got your own show ready to get ready for. You're in studio already, 2 to 6, the Sports Bash over there, 97.3. I know you got Sal Pal coming up today. Anything else we can tease for our listening audience? What do you got?
Yeah, we got football at 4. Adam Kaplan, always great. Right when the injuries come out, he pops on, and then Casey Joyner from The Athletic gives us one thought on every game we go through, and he gives us boom, 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 kind of a NFL PTI style. There you go.
Good stuff. Always appreciate the time, Mike. Buckle up.
All right, guys. See ya.
All right. Mike Gill, 97.3. Tune in later today, 2 to 6. Broadcaster of the Year nominee. We're so lucky to chop it up, talk some football with Mike, and definitely gives us an alternate perspective. And we're going to take a quick commercial break. This is the 69th edition of the Football Playbook with your boy RIC and the police to be, Ric Serritella. Telling it like it is when it comes to your Philadelphia Eagles, the National Football League, college football landscape, NFL draft. I see you guys firing up the names. I'll tell you what, we'll come back. We can go in whatever direction you want. Go around the league, NFL Pick'em, NFL Draft. Jason Garrett, by the way, a finalist for the Stanford head coaching job. We'll talk about that. Hit the like button while you're here, and we'll come back for the second hour of power here on the Football Playbook.